let's move on to video games. And Garrett, you are playing the popular video game du jour, Vampire Survivors.
I've lost literal time to this video game. Like last Sunday, I played this for 15 hours over last weekend. And last Sunday, I played it for like 6 hours in a row. It was 3:30 in the morning, and I had wondered how I had gotten there. That's the state I was in. I was in a literal haze, being like, where did the time I spent playing this video game go? I'd look at my phone and see messages from like 4 hours ago that I hadn't responded to, because I was so hooked into this silly, simple little game. Because I heard multiple podcasts talk about Vampire Survivors. I think it became a big hit, particularly at the start of the year. And Barry started playing it as well this week, so that was my final moment to be like, I should play Vampire Survivors, because I've struggled for something to play after Tunic. I've been kind of bouncing around. So I played Vampire Survivor.
You hated Tunic so much you almost gave up on video games, is what you're saying.
Yes, I abandoned the medium altogether.
Oh, man. Oh, nice.
But I did grab Vampire Survivors, which is, I believe, on Xbox Game Pass for PC, but it's also only like $260. The game is extremely cheap anyway, so there's not much difference there. But I was like, I'm going to dive into it, and it hooked me. I am lucky that there's only like 20 to 25 hours of gameplay in this game, or I would be in deep, deep trouble. Because it's still only in early access, so it's probably not quite finished yet. And I would say if this game can release on Switch, because there's a lot that goes on screen in this game that actually the Switch secretly might not be able to handle.
I really don't think this game would be able to run on Switch.
Because it looks very simple on the surface, but like there is so much on screen by the end of these levels. There's literally hundreds of enemies and hundreds of attack effects firing off at once. The Switch probably couldn't run this game.
You get to points where it is difficult to see where your character is in like relation to the nearest enemy, because there's so much shit going on around. That there have been times that I was taking damage and I didn't realize it because I couldn't actually see where my character and the nearest enemy was.
Yeah, if you can't do crowd control in this game, you're dead. You're just gonna die. It's just so. If for people that haven't played it, the nearest genre is probably bullet hell. That's like the nearest direct kind of game it is. So you play as multiple characters that have multiple different attacks, but it's entirely passive. You basically spend the entire game avoiding being hit, and all of your attacks fire off passively. So like you have knives that can fire straight out in front of you. You have like a magic wand that will shoot at the nearest enemy. You have a garlic spell that gives you like a ring around you that damages you. And there's loads and loads of more abilities, and you unlock as you unlock more characters, you unlock more abilities, because each character starts with a different attack. So you basically run around trying to avoid being hit and surviving as long as you can, as waves of enemies just walk toward you endlessly. They just keep on running at you until you hit the half-hour mark and you technically win and you're killed instantly, which is quite rude, but it technically counts as a win.
Even took me by surprise when it happened.
Yeah, because every level has a 30-minute time limit, and if you get there, which odds are you won't, but if you can, it'll just kill you. Because like the last minute to 90 seconds, every so often like a boss enemy will show up, and if you kill them, you get treasure, and they're much harder to kill. They have a lot more health. But like the last minute or 90 seconds or so, literally every enemy on the screen is a boss enemy, so it is very difficult to kill them. So like bullet hell, loads of enemies running at you, you trying to kill them, you trying to crowd control, you trying to stay alive. That's the basic gist of it. And it's so simple and straightforward that I can't like quite get my head around why I lose so much time to this game, because I can't do just one run of this game. It's not that kind of game for me for some reason.
Yeah, same.
Even though it feels like it should be. It feels like one of those games. It's like I'll just do a run and suddenly it's 2 hours down the line. You're like, gah.
I don't even like this game as much as you and Barry, and I've lost about 10 to 15 hours to this fucking thing this week.
It is so addictive, and again, in a way that I can't entirely put my finger on exactly why, but it is infinitely playable. And I think it is because it is like largely such a passive game. It actually, it doesn't require a lot of brain power, even though you can get overwhelmed and you can die. It doesn't actually require a ton of inputs. Literally, you're just moving your character. It doesn't ask a ton of you while you play it, which I think is what makes it so playable.
I mean, it's like, it's a bullet hell, but it also, to some degree, is like a cookie clicker sort of game, like an idle game, basically. You know, it's not that far removed, and while there is the strategy that, like, the basic strategy, or the two basic strategies that you need to do is just decide what items you're going to pick up when they come to you, and just avoid things on the screen. Oh, I guess you need to, like, pick up the coins or the experience or whatever it's called as well. But that's it. You know, the game does not ask any more of you than that. And it's one of those things that, like, for me, my build is always based around get as much garlic as possible and then just run into things. And then sometimes some enemies will take more than a couple of hits, so I can't run just immediately into them. But when you get to the point where, like, if I'll have, like, I get up to level 5 or level 6 of the garlic, and I'll get up to level 3 or 4 of the Bible that spins around you, I know which enemies now can be killed in one hit with that, and I will just run into them like a bulldozer into snow, and just, you know, immediately collect all the coins and the experience from that. And then when you get to, you know, like 20-minute mark and you're fucking completely overpowered, and there's still, like, the occasional enemy that will take you by surprise, but you can still wipe most of the stuff off the screen. It's like an oddly satisfying video to some degree, except you're in control of this, you have the agency.
It probably reminds me of a Muso game with the same thing. It's like just you against hordes of enemies. It's not particularly difficult at times. The big satisfaction is just destroying, like, countless enemies. Sometimes, like, hundreds of enemies a second, literally, you'll be mowing down at one stage. And yeah, it's like, I'm not sure how we treat early access games for Game of the Year.
They're no bueno. They got the 1.0.
So if this comes out this year, it's my second best game of the year behind Elden Ring. That's how I feel about this game right now. So
the other thing that I enjoy about it is it's also all dressed up in a. It's not Castlevania, but
it's very Castlevania. Well, yeah. all of the like the cross item, the Bible item, the fact that you get health pickups, which is floor chicken. Like it's very Castlevania in terms of aesthetic.
Yeah, it's an a la carte naming reference away from an IP trademark violation. It's yeah.
Even like the first character you have is their default weapon is a whip. So like it couldn't be more Castlevania if they really tried.
Yeah, it's. I guess I would be interested to see, like, what their plans are, because it goes without saying, you know, ideally as a Switch game that would be great, but it technically. Like, well, for one thing, the game's made in JavaScript, which is, like, super weird for, like, a 2022 game. But, like, honestly, you're playing it, and I feel like I'm playing a fucking Ludum Dare Game Jam game that was made in 48 hours, like, 10 years ago, or something. Like, there's probably, like, a base template version of this game that I would have played on Newgrounds 15 or 20 odd years ago. Obviously, nowhere near with the same amount of characters and sprites on the screen, but there's a version of this that I know I've played in a previous lifetime, and I think that's what. It's almost annoying me how simple this game is, and why am I losing hours to this? Because I don't think it's like a great game or anything, but I'm being sucked into it just because of its simplicity and its mechanics, and I guess I have to applaud it for that. Yeah, I am curious to see what like a full release looks like. Because, you know, it's not just the one level that you do over and over again. Like, you do unlock characters, you can unlock, you have all of your base level abilities, like your strength, your speed, your armor, and you can upgrade those as you collect coins throughout the run.
Yeah, permanent upgrades as well.
Yeah, which is like the kind of the one incentive that you have to play at the moment, other than also to unlock the levels. I don't know how many levels have you unlocked so far, Garrett?
I've unlocked 4 main ones and a few bonuses.
Okay, so I've only unlocked 3 so far, and I don't know. I feel like level 2 is my sweet spot because it's the one that's so rewarding to just use. Because all of the characters that you unlock all have their own specific ability, combined with one of the items that you can use as well. So you've got the old guy that immediately starts with the garlic around him. And all of the enemies in the early stage, you can just run into and just collect and build up a bunch of levels and items very, very quickly. So that's the thing that I just keep coming back to and do like 3 or 4 runs and lose, 3 or 4 hours. So, yeah.
I was thinking about your point about the simplicity of this, where it's like, there are games that have like budgets of like $100 million that don't come close to maintaining my interests. Yep. Compared to this game that costs $3 on Steam. Like,
what a world.
It's clearly make easy, simple games that just hook your attention. It's, as I said, it is the cookie clicker. It is the freaking Farmville or whatever comparison you want of these easy passive games that do have like an actual mechanical element. And like, as you said, a surprising amount of strategy, because there is like multiple different character builds. Like you can forego something like the garlic. I'm a fan of myself of having knives and the wand, so that basically everything in front of me dies. Like everything I look at just dies immediately.
Yeah, I think the one thing about the game, and obviously this will probably be expanded in time, because I was talking about Peglin like last week or the week before, and that it's a roguelite in the sense that, you know, you can play the game differently because there's enough different items that you won't always see the same items in the same run, so it kind of like changes your strategy to some degree. And I don't think there's enough items. Like, if I want to, basically every run ends up with, I will have a bunch of garlic, and I can always play the run that I want to. Which is good in some ways because it gives me the agency that I can, you know, do the run that I want to. But like, these types of games also should be trying to force you at times to try different runs, try different builds. And I don't think there's enough items at the moment, or there's not enough like variation in the enemies to really warrant trying to do different builds, other than just, you know, if you have the curiosity. But fuck it, I'm lazy and the garlic works for me. And there are times I can just stand there and just have the enemies run into me, and that does everything for me.
You can literally stand still. The stand still builds are my favorite builds.
Yeah, I literally have an idle game at that point. It's great.
Yeah, it's definitely a game that I really want to check out soon, because it feels like something we're going to be talking about, you know, towards the end of the year.
If it comes out.
That's the thing. I don't know if it comes out. Yeah.
We shall see.
You know, like, there is a version of this game that can run on like a potato as well. So, you know,